So, Disney fairy tale, Disney geek thing. Disney fairy tale, Disney geek thing. Yeah, that seems about right. This time, Disney transfers its lovingly loose adaptation touch to a Marvel property, obscure enough so that barely anyone will care. Short version, I love it! It is an exceptionally fun and sweet movie that only really suffers from being too short. And because we're all thinking it, yes, you do need to stay through the credits. No, it's not an Avengers crossover, though you can see how we might have been confused. And yes, there is also a Stan Lee cameo. Where fairy tale critique and platonic love was the thematic hook of Frozen, Big Hero 6's is the celebration of science, educationally driven, and intelligent people without having to turn them into victims. And platonic love. Hiro Hamada is a 13-year-old robotics prodigy whose boredom drives him to use his skills for advanced street scamming until he sees the work that his brother and classmates are doing at the university robotics lab. Making him a pretty blatant stand-in for a science and education is cool PSA, but in the form of a really entertaining multiple character introduction while displaying each of the characters' individual projects that will become the basis of their superpowers. You mathematical geniuses! And there's also Fred. Aside from being a really great and tactfully executed message, I'm especially glad because scientific invention was something that Walt Disney himself was very passionate about, a topic they did explore in Meet the Robinsons, which does a decent job in showing the needed endurance for such a job, but I am glad that there's a Disney movie about invention that's better. And I'm somebody who probably likes the Meet the Robinsons more than most, but which movie do you think Disney Imagineers are going to put on their pamphlets to attract more people? Hiro is definitely one of the more likable 13-year-old bratty protagonists because of his character arc and because he has a skill that's actually worth bragging about. And the other robotic majors, and Fred, to become superheroes are really fun characters. While not individually fleshed out all that much, and yeah, the movie really does treat the four of them as one entity. Seriously, every time any of them enters a scene, it's always in a group, but they each have lots of personality. They are incredibly entertaining when they interact, and their superhero forms have really fun science-based powers. I gotta give it up for Honey Lemon's element-producing satchel. It gives an entirely new meaning to the purse that holds everything. And a really good example of combining feminine with badass, especially since she's not the only girl. By the way, woman up is best new line. I also have to give credit to Fred, who I swore I was gonna hate in this movie, partly because TJ Miller has this habit of voicing douchebags, but really that the laid-back, I'm funny because I say inappropriately random stuff character is kinda starting to grate on me. But once he's shown to have genuine emotions, he's actually pretty likable. And yes, as with every single movie by a major studio, it looks fantastic. The action choreography, the robotics details, the character animation, and San Francisco's, yes, American-Japanese hybrid design. But Honey Lemon does still look a little too much like Rapunzel, guys. I mean, DreamWorks is kicking your butt in this department. And of course, Baymax, the greatest audience magnet in advertising since Rocket Raccoon. Baymax might be the most brilliantly toyified character design in history, including the toys from Toy Story, because he has a plush form and an action figure form. But he also might be one of the best comic relief characters ever. Primarily because he's actually integral to the plot, and that his comedy works on two levels: his deadpan, socially ignorant robotic literalism, and the physical comedy of being a walking balloon. Oh, 3 levels! When he runs out of batteries, he is blatantly being played as intoxicated. All this, but because his actions are always driven by his internal programming as a health robot to help and heal people, including their emotional states, he also works as an empathetic character, while still being believable as an artificial personality. None of this becoming human works without the emotion chip cop-outs. I'm proud of you, Disney. You've been doing so well in the comic relief department lately. Yes, Baymax is the reason people will see this movie, and he is what people will remember. But no, the movie isn't perfect, but at least none of its problems are severe deal breakers. To illustrate, let me introduce you to Celly's enjoyment graph, approximated, showing my level of enjoyment during a movie's runtime. Now this sag is just because this section is made up of clips that were in the trailer, so limited surprises. As for the latter part, well, for starters, I liked watching the characters interact so much that I actually wish I could have seen more of that rather than the action scenes, even though the action scenes and science powers were fantastic. But more promptly, I feel like there is a problem in the story's structure, in that I feel like it was missing an act. Like Act 1 and Act 2 kind of feel like in a different superhero movie they both would have been part of Act 1, because then Act 3 feels like it came way too fast. Like Hero has an emotional arc, arc that suddenly elevates and then gets resolved way too quickly. Which is a weird thing because apparently some people think that this film already feels too long. And I think it is because Act 2, the establishing origin section, really does feel like an elongated part of Act 1. But honestly, that's the best part of the film. The first half of this movie is pretty much perfect, feeling like the second half has to kind of rush to clean up, even though it still does a pretty good job. And then the story twists in this movie are honestly pretty easy to guess, but you can debate how much that affected your enjoyment. As for me, the twists aren't as irritating as the thing that was given away in the trailer. Trailers really do ruin everything, even if that thing could have still been guessed. But in the end, Big Hero 6 is still a great, enjoyable film that's funny, action-packed, and also touching and adorable. If you were to rank this alongside other superhero films, this would definitely be an Iron Man. And I always appreciate the endorsement of intelligent people. But you're still a superhero movie, so no matter what, you won't win an Oscar. Yeah, you won't either.